Hi, this is Mark. Welcome back to my channel, What Burns My Ass. This is the channel where I tell you the things that burn my ass. You tell me whether or not they burn your ass too. So, another new format. That's why I've been I've been working, I was creating this little frame that you see around my pictures and seeing if this format's going to work for me on my channel. And it took a lot of effort, and I think it's really kind of cool. And maybe you can let me know in the comments if you like this kind of new framing thing that I'm doing here. That is kind of interesting. Could be fun. Anyways, so this is this last Sunday's Meet the Press. And this is Kristen Welker interviewing Senator Tom Cotton of Arizona. And basically, this whole interview is nothing but propaganda from the Democrats. She spends the entire interview attacking the senator's credibility and blaming everything on Donald Trump and making excuses for Alejandro Mayorkas and Kamala Harris and the Biden administration. It's absolutely insane. I'm kind of baffled why anybody in their right mind any Republican would want to come on this show, because every weekend is just another hit piece against the Republicans and against Donald Trump. So you're just giving. I think their ratings would drop to nothing if nobody would bother to go on the show on the Republican side, because I know that a lot of Democrats are going to watch this just to see her confront a Republican, and also how she blames everything. That's basically probably what is her entire audience is looking for whenever they come on the show, because it's never actually news. It's just all propaganda every time she opens her mouth. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video, and we're going to show how she speaks down to the senator, a leader of our country. She has no respect for this man being one of the leaders of our country. And the confrontations about his she's basically calling him a liar. And she's blaming everything that's gone wrong with the recovery efforts in North Carolina and Tennessee on Donald Trump. It's all Donald Trump's fault because he just keeps talking, and he's this and this, and he's a propagandist, and he's politicizing this disaster, and it's unbelievable. I'm shocked that ABC News still has a license the way this lady conducts interviews, and and also what she did on the debate was absolutely nightmarish. But let's go ahead and watch this video, and we're going to see how bad she is as an interviewer.
Is Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, welcome back to Meet the Press. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Kristen.
Let's start off by talking about Hurricane Helene. We know that former President Trump has made, quite frankly, a series of baseless claims, including that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from areas where Republicans live, also saying that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Both those claims have been debunked. They're false. Here's what Deanne Criswell, the FEMA administrator, had to say about it. Take a look.
This level of misinformation creates this scenario where they won't even come to us. They won't even register. And I need people to register so they can get what they're eligible for through our programs.
Senator, what do you say to that criticism that Mr. Trump is confusing people at a very time when they need help the most?
Well, I don't think he's confusing anyone. I think the administration did get caught flat-footed here, and that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have proven to be overmatched by events again. If you hear from Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who's very close to this, is monitoring it on the ground, Georgia's response, he said that the administration's response has been lackluster. I think there's an obvious difference between what happened in western North Carolina, northern Georgia, eastern Tennessee than the normal kind of hurricane impact we see. Most of the time, hurricanes are hitting on the coast, hitting by definition flat land. They can cause devastating damage. But within some reasonable period of time, the waters recede, linemen can come in, trucks can come in, bring supplies. If you look at the geography of where Helene did the most damage, it's in the mountains where you have small, narrow valleys. Even once the storm moved on and there's no more rain, oftentimes these places only have one way in and out. So that's a very different challenge than what you see on coastal areas. And I think the administration from the very beginning should have been deploying military assets necessary, specifically helicopters, to get in there. It took them days to do that. There's hundreds of military helicopters within flying distance of this area. That should have happened from the very beginning.
So here it is. Senator Tom Cotton gives an eloquent explanation of how he sees this has been handled. And yet, right from the beginning, his lies have been debunked already, and blah, 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 blah. And then they bring on Democrats that are, of course, going to reiterate everything that, they're going to protect. Like, I'm sure she's probably a Kamala Harris voter. So, of course, she's going, and she probably doesn't like Donald Trump. So, this lady that said she was from FEMA is, of course, going to blame Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you think that somebody's house floated away from them and they're out on the street, they got no food, they got no water, even their vehicle may have been washed away, you're going to tell me that they need instructions to go seek help to get what I seriously doubt that. That doesn't even make sense. But again, this is how this show is run. It's a defense of everything that the Democrats do is perfect, and it's a slander on how everything Republicans and everything that Donald Trump is always bad. And it's just proof that our media is just this is why mainstream media is losing all its viewers, and people like you are watching me on YouTube because we're tired of this type of show. It's obvious that everything that's coming out of her mouth is to protect the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, and it's just to attack Donald Trump and make why their recovery efforts are so bad. It's just absolutely amazing. So we're going to watch more.
Senator, just a couple of points there. The governors themselves has said that they are satisfied with the federal response. Brian Kemp on Monday said, we got what we needed. The Democratic governor of North Carolina said the state is grateful for the support. We know that North Carolina got $27 million to Western North Carolina specifically. There's no doubt that there are challenges in this recovery effort, but I'm asking you about the misinformation that the former president is spreading. Here's what the Charlotte Observer editorial board wrote. They wrote, quote, former President Donald Trump has politicized the situation at every turn, spreading falsehoods and conspiracies that fracture the community instead of bringing it together. Do you think Donald Trump should leave campaign politics out of disaster relief?
Now look at this. This is just a blatant attack on Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with the recovery. It just shows how the whole show is an attack. It's an attack, it's attack, it's attack. It has nothing to do with the actual, she doesn't care about these people. This show isn't worried about what's going on for these people. This show is about attacking Donald Trump and the Republican Party and saying this is why the recovery efforts of Kamala Harris and Biden administration is not up to par. It's subpar. And wait till you see the other reasons why this is below par. And she'll make another excuse for that. But we're going to go ahead.
Kristen, again, you have Governor Kemp who said that the response has been lacking. I understand the Democratic governor of North Carolina is going to praise Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the middle of an election season. But the simple fact is we're more than a week on. We're still not conducting recovery operations. They're still engaged in rescue operations because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were slow to answer the bell here. They were slow-footed and they were overmatched by events. You even had the Secretary of Homeland Security saying there's not enough money left in the fund. So it is the case that the administration itself, the secretary who oversees FEMA, said there's not enough money left in the fund, and they have been spending billions of dollars for the last 4 years to move migrants from our border, to put them up in hotels and give them room service and maids. That's simply a fact.
Those funds are.
So, here we go again. I think I explained this before too. When you're finding migrants with $12,000 food stamp balances and $2,500 available for cash, and yet these people in North Carolina and Tennessee, which were announced on the national news, only received $750. But these Haitians and these other illegal immigrants that ran across the border are living high in the hog in hotel rooms in major cities, getting meals, getting food stamps, getting accommodations. And yet these people, Americans that are out there on the street, cold, they've lost everything, they're devastated, and they get $750 to go buy something to eat. what an absolute joke. And the other astonishing thing is that I even heard, even as just a few days ago, there's bodies still floating around. They haven't recovered all the dead bodies. I mean, it's obvious that Alejandro Mayorkas is an incompetent person to run FEMA. He just is, or Department of Homeland Security. It's disgusting how bad of a leader he is. And yet here she is again. Well, Donald Trump said a few things, and that's why this whole thing is a disaster. Really? Does that make sense to anybody who's listening to this video? Because it don't make sense to me. So, okay, so we're gonna listen to more of these excuses and more of these attacks.
Coming from a different federal fund, not from disaster relief, just to be clear. And what DHS Secretary Mayorkas said is that it has the money it needs for now, but not necessarily through the end of the year for future hurricanes. So there is a discussion about more funding. You're right about that. But look, Henry McMaster, the Republican governor of South Carolina, said federal assistance has been superb. Glenn Youngkin said he's incredibly appreciative of the rapid response. And again, Brian Kemp on Monday, at least in part, said we got what we need, while also saying, yes, there are some more things that we would like to see here in the state. My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
And again,
so here's another perfect explanation from the senator. And I think for most people that are not biased, towards the Republicans, and just look at this for the situation. It's a disaster. The recovery effort's been terrible. Yes, billions of dollars have been poured into illegal immigrants and all these other things. And he also said that, yes, funds could be transferred between the other two. She's going to go and make another excuse why that's not true, and how they're handling this thing perfectly, and how these governors and everything said everything was so fast and so quick. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're part of the news media outlet, why aren't your cameras down in those states, down in North Carolina, down in Tennessee, filming the recovery and proving what you're saying is true? That Donald Trump is lying and the senator's lying and there's plenty of money and these people are getting the help they need. If you're part of the news media, isn't that part of your job? Instead of just sitting here and attacking one of our political leaders and confronting him and calling him a liar? Our country, I think, has proverbially lost its mind. And yet, this happens every day in our media. And I think there needs to be some kind of reckoning. I mean, I'm all for freedom of speech. But when you're putting it out as misinformation and you're putting it out as, you're saying you're debunking things, but you're really generally, your facts that you're supposedly debunking for are not true, then you're lying to the American public, which can cause political issues. And of course, it's also causing a divide in our country between Republicans and Democrats. We can't even look each other in the eye or express how we feel about anything because we're a fear that we're going to be attacked. And it's people like her and CNN and MSDNC that are causing the inability to be able to talk and discern facts from fiction. Let's listen to some more.
And $110 million have been sent to survivors so far. And again, those are different funds than disaster relief funds. But let me ask you about something different. I want to.
So see, she did it again. She said your fact is wrong within seconds after he gave this incredible explanation. It's amazing.
Talk about one of the big moments this week from the vice presidential debate. We just played it in the open when Senator J.D. Vance refused to say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. I want to put this question to you, Senator, just to put this to rest. Can you say definitively here and now that Donald Trump did lose the 2020 election?
Kristen, Joe Biden was elected president in 2020. It was an unfair election in many ways. I mean, you had states that were changing their election practices or election laws, sometimes in violation of their constitution. You had networks combining with big tech to suppress what we now know to be a truthful story about Hunter Biden's laptop and the evidence that it exposed about Biden family corruption. So obviously Joe Biden was elected president. We know that in part because...
But did Trump lose?
Joe Biden was elected, Kristen. There's a process by which we elect presidents. There's votes in November. You have an electoral college vote. You certify the election. And then you have the inauguration. Joe Biden was elected president. Everything has gone to hell in a handbasket as a result of it.
As you know, though, I mean, it has been stated that this was one of the most secure elections in U.S. history. But do you just not want to say that Trump lost? Why not just say the simple,
Kristen,
if Biden is president, can you just simply say Trump lost?
Joe Biden was elected president in 2020. That's why we have runaway inflation. That's why we have more than 10 million illegals in this country. And to go back to the point about the 2020 election, it was very irregular. You had networks, to include this networks, conspiring with big tech to suppress evidence of Biden family corruption. You had Democratic states and cities like Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia, changing their election practices on the fly. That's one reason why President Trump and the Republican National Committee is so focused on election integrity in this election to make sure that Democrats aren't doing things like they're trying to do in Pennsylvania, counting absentee and mail-in ballots that don't have dates or that have the wrong.
So here she is. She can't even let him finish his statements because she's decided that what he's saying is absolute false. There's no validity, that there were some irregularities. And I've said this in my prior videos. Yes, there was, because Trump won states that if you won those particular states, you won the presidency. This is the first time that a president, in a presidential election, Joe Biden had won very specific states that, and the entire history of our elections, had the president, had the person running won those particular states, they automatically were, they just said they won. And Donald Trump won those states, and yet somehow he miraculously still lost. And yes, there were states that changed their laws to favor, mail-in ballots, certain, I mean, there was laws just changed all over. And one had to do with water and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's just nothing but propaganda, game playing by both sides. I don't condone game playing from either political party. I think it should be stopped on both sides. But this is obvious. I mean, he's pointing out the things that actually did. And yes, that's what caused January 6th. And you could blame it on Donald Trump that he said go attack a building. But if you watch the video, he did say we're going to peacefully and patriotically let our voices be heard. Plus the slip up on Nancy Pelosi by not having the National Guard there. Had Nancy Pelosi had the National Guard there, this would have never happened. Would not have happened. And yet she'll never bring any of that up. She will not bring any of that up. It's absolutely amazing.
And there's no proof that happened. And again, just to be clear, as I said initially, Trump did take his case to court more than 60 times, didn't win those cases. Let me move on and ask you about January 6th, though. This new evidence unsealed this week. Jack Smith, in this filing, says he has 3 witnesses, forensic experts, who will testify that when Donald Trump returned to the Ellipse, he went to the dining room by the Oval Office where he watched coverage of the attack against the Capitol unfold. And he was, of course, on his phone, on Twitter. A year ago, I asked Donald Trump about what he was doing during that time. Look. Tell me how you watched this all unfold. Were you in the dining room watching TV?
I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell people later at an appropriate time.
I want to know who you called
By the way,
on that day.
Nancy Pelosi. I don't have. Why would I tell you that?
Did you call military or law enforcement?
What?
Did you call military or law enforcement at the moment the Capitol was under attack?
I'm not going to tell you anything.
Senator, do you think Donald Trump showed leadership in those hours when the Capitol was under attack?
Well, what I think about what Jack Smith did this week is that it was a temper tantrum from a deranged fanatic who is angry that he keeps losing time and time again in the Supreme Court over the course of his career. This is unverified, uncross-examined hearsay from grand jury testimony, which usually isn't revealed publicly for that reason. He went to court He asks for special permission to file a brief that's 4 times as long as a normal brief and to have it disclosed less than 30 days before the election. This is professional misconduct in all likelihood by Jack Smith, and it should be investigated.
So here you go. Perfect explanation from Senator Cotton. This is the games that Democrats play. I'm not saying the Republicans, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying in any way whatsoever that the Republicans don't play games, because they do. But this is proof right here that this show is nothing but a hit piece. She's just attacking. So this has nothing really this show has nothing to do with North Carolina or the FEMA issue or any of that. This is just a show to attack Democrats and to excuse the bad leadership by the Democrats in this recovery effort and slander Donald Trump just before the election. She's trying to get her last few hits in because, of course, our election's, a few weeks away. So this is how they our news media conducts itself in this country. It's absolutely shameful.
Just to be clear, the judge did unseal it, but just back to the question, do you think Donald Trump showed leadership in those hours that the Capitol was under attack?
Look, I know that President Trump said to the rally-goers who were here on the ellipse in Washington that day that they should protest peacefully and patriotically.
It took him 3 hours to send that tweet telling them to go home.
He posted videos and other messages on social media once some of those rally-goers started a riot at the Capitol, telling them to leave the Capitol, to not assault law enforcement. I know those things. What Jack Smith is asserting in this filing is unverified, uncross-examined hearsay. This is a perfect example of actual election interference. Jack Smith violating Department of Justice regulations to try to get out as much unverified so-called evidence as he has because he's angry that he lost and the Democrats don't think they can beat Donald Trump on issues like inflation and immigration.
Very, very quickly on Iran, would you support?
So there you go. And he's a very good orator. He says exactly what he needs to say, and he says it very clearly, and it makes sense. And again, this is just nothing more than an attack on Donald Trump. This isn't a show. It just isn't. And I don't know. I just want to keep repeating myself. So let's just move on. But it's beyond words. It really is.
Support Israel launching strikes on Iran's nuclear facility, Senator?
We should do what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris haven't done for a year. We should let Israel win, and we should back Israel to the hilt.
So that's a yes?
They will decide how to retaliate against Iran. Iran is our enemy. Israel needs our support. We should back them to the hilt in what they decide to do.
Should they go after the nuclear sites? Would you support that as a U.S. Senator?
I'm not going to give Benjamin Netanyahu advice on what to target. I'm going to say that unlike Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, we should back Israel to the hilt. We should let them win against our common enemies.
All right. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.
So there you go. Another hit piece from NBC. Kristen Welker is nothing but a mouthpiece for the Democrats. It's really kind of pathetic. And I don't understand how she gets away with that. I just don't. Anyways, this is what burns my ass. And I always want you to remember, what burns my ass probably burns your ass too. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And please leave some comments about what you thought about how this interview went. It was absolutely amazing. It was just nothing but pure propaganda. And I don't think this should be allowed on national TV. Because I believe this is what's caused the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Anyways, thanks for watching. And please remember, like and subscribe. Have a good one.